Tita, FAIA, and I am your current 2018 AIA Austin president, and I am thrilled to see you all here. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are very fortunate to have Doreen Lorenzo here today. She is a business leader. She is the Dean of UT School of Design and Creative Technologies and an expert on human-centric design philosophy. Doreen brings a unique perspective to the meeting, design thinking. But first, we would love to express our gratitude to our sponsors, and with all of our AIA Austin programs and activities, we could not do them without the generous support of our underwriters and our sponsors. So I'd like to thank our Luncheon underwriters today. Thank you so much for your support of AIA Austin. If you'd like to stand and introduce yourself, please do. I see from Acme Brick, Steve Morris and Mike Key. Specify brick?
Yeah. So I'm Steve Morris. I've been with Acme for 17 years. We're growing, the economy's growing, everything's growing. Mike King has been with us for about 4 years. He's joining. He's going to be doing what I'm doing, which is marketing and promotions and helping out with sampling and specifications. But this is Mike King. Yeah.
Everybody, that, like I said, Austin is ever so growing, so we had to expand to 2 different meetings. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your support. From Innova Tile.
Hi guys, I'm Rebecca. I do business development at Innova Tile. We've been in Austin just a short amount of time, but we thank all of you who have embraced our products. For those of you who don't know, we just have a family of 9 factories in Italy that do a wide range of terracotta products.
Thank you.
From Jordan.
We are an MEP engineering firm, been in business 65 years, with offices across the country. I am the principal over the local office here in Austin, and I've been here for 4 years.
We're from Rogers O'Brien now. We have Carolyn Carabinos.
Hi, I've been with Rogers O'Brien almost 4 months, so I know a lot of you, but I've been in the industry for a long time. Rogers O'Brien is here, and this year we will celebrate our 50th anniversary, so we love design build.
And I don't think Rusty Morgan is here from, great, thank you, but we do.
Marketing director there. We're founded in Austin, 12 years old. We do about 50% ground up and 50% tenant build out. Love to work with you.
Thank you so much. And it's always great to see some over a really great topic, so thank you again. There are lots of possibilities for you all to join other programs more robustly, so as an allied member, if there's anything else that you would like to support at AIA, talk to Ingrid. Many of our programs are now in collaboration, actually, with our nonprofit partner, the Austin Foundation for Architecture. Our AIA Austin treasurer and AFA board member, Michael Bodak, AIA, is here to tell you a little bit more about AFA.
Again, I'm Michael Bodak, and I am the treasurer of the AIA this year, which I'm very proud to be at. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Austin Foundation for Architecture and what it means. The Austin Foundation for Architecture, well, AIA is a professional organization, and it allows us all to do really good professional work and to increase our profession's value. But AFA is the organization that lets us go beyond that and actually expand the value of architecture in the community to make us all more design-minded and hopefully to raise the plateau of design throughout. So if you're passionate about architecture as a field and more than just a profession, the Austin Foundation for Architecture is that venue that does that. The Austin Foundation for Architecture started off primarily providing leadership grants and working to benefit a lot of the youth, the younger people in the architecture community, and gave them opportunities for travel or speaking, things like that. But over the years, it has morphed into more than that. It sponsors activities such as ACE mentorship, has sponsored the architecture talks at the UMLA, It has supported the rooftop film series that's up at the Austin Museum of Art. All of these are great things, and lately the Austin Foundation for Architecture has taken another step forward. We have now become a fully 501c3, which means from a technical standpoint, we are our own charitable organization, and we can now raise the bar on what we do even more. That includes not only the ability to accept donations from the community at large directly in a tax-free method, but it also enables the Austin Foundation for Architecture to support activities for the AIA even more directly and the community as a whole. So what we're going to be doing more going forward is our members and other members of the community are going to identify activities that are available that can be found with grants that are above and beyond the Austin Foundation for Architecture, and give us a means to manage that process and run it through. The Austin Foundation for Architecture has, over the years, since 2007, been able to give away $100,000 of money, or more than $100,000 of money, directly to the community. So it's been very impactful, and we hope that this grant procedure will enable us to do even more. On top of this ability of working with the AIA, the AFA is also going to be a partner for something that Murray Legg and a lot of other people in the community have been talking about, which is the idea of a Center for Architecture. We have this vision that the Center for Architecture will be a physical space, but it also is going to start off as being a space that resides more in the ether and more directly in the community, though, by doing things of value. And the AFA is proud to be a partner with the AIA related to that. Now, we need your help, obviously, more than ever, as we have this more ambitious agenda. So we look for you to donate in various ways. We have always done a few different events over the course of the year, one of them being Discover Design Over Dinner. We just had one of those earlier this year with Bumble, at the Bumble headquarters, and it was really a lovely event. Every time you come to one of those events, that is a charitable donation for the Austin Foundation for Architecture as well. We also, every year, I think we skipped this past year, we recognize a particular member of the community in a forum function event. And that is another event that's a big step, or a big event for the AFA, and it enables you to come and give money at the same time and be part of the party. Lastly, we have a big event coming up in November 15th, what's called Archie Golf. It's going to be at Topgolf. There's many opportunities to sponsor that, or be a member to buy a bay, or just come and participate. I'll be there swinging my club, so I'm more than happy to have you all join me at that point in time. Those are fun ways to give money, but I think we need to think beyond that and actually think about giving money directly to the organization as a whole. Like I said, we've given away $100,000 over the years, and we hope to be able to do even more and to build this center. And for that, we actually probably need direct contributions. So we have a page on the website that gets to that. I think I'm a firm believer that the built environment is a direct reflection of the character of the people in the community of that built environment. And if you believe that too, and I think you all do because you're here today listening to these kind of things, then you really need to be a design-minded person. And the Austin Foundation for Architecture is that entity that gets out and expresses the value of design and tries to make the community more design-minded. Sinclair Black, I understand, recently gave a donation to the Austin Foundation for Architecture for $10,000, and he's going to match an additional $10,000, I think, if I understand correctly, for all the other donations that we're able to raise in the next, I don't know if there's actually a timeline on it. But this is a perfect time to, if you've not been aware of the Austin Foundation for Architecture, to become aware, find our website, come to our events, and potentially give money directly to the organization like I do and so many other people do. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the Austin Foundation for Architecture for being our philanthropic partner. Now I am thrilled to introduce Doreen Lorenzo. She has led global creative firms such as Frog Design and Quirky, and for decades has been advising Fortune 500 companies about the power of innovation and design thinking. A year ago, she was appointed as Assistant Dean for the New School of Design and Creative Technologies at UT, and she has been involved with several startups and has been a columnist for Fast Company. This past February, Texas Monthly named Doreen as one of 15 innovators shaping Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Doreen Lorenzo.
Thank you. Nice job. So you'll notice I have no slides. Because you're all designers, you look at great things all day. So we're going to just talk a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. This is kind of act 2 for me, but I took a route to get here. It makes sense. So I'll give you a little bit of history. So for the past, it's almost 30 years, I did what probably most of you do now. I led departments, and I led teams, and I had product development and product reinvention. I did mergers and acquisitions, and I always say I hired and I fired some of the best people in the world, because we know we go through those ups and downs and times. And after I did all that, I kind of assumed, well, let's see, I'll go sit on a board, and maybe I'll sit on the beach, or I'll do some interesting things. I'll consult. But I did a speech, not unlike this one, and an engineering professor from the University of Texas was sitting in there. And he said to me, I was in Maine, Portland, Maine, and he said, "Oh my God, Bob Metcalf." And he said, "You need to be teaching design thinking at the University of Texas." And I had no idea what he was talking about. Like, I literally had no idea what he was talking about. And that started what I called the year of eating well, because I spent a year talking to a lot of people at UT about what would this look like and what were they trying to accomplish. Because as designers, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Who are we trying to solve that problem for? And so I really wanted to understand. So I ended up at the University of Texas, and for me, it's really, I'm committed to solving some problems I see with this new creative economy coming up. I want to teach this future workforce to be empathetic, to be design leaders and design thinkers. And of course, they're going to make some mistakes along the way. We're here to help them. So it's not that unexpected that I ended up at this R1, really well-known institution. Because listen, I think you see it too. I'm going to say this and take a leap of faith here. For years, I saw students coming out of school and kind of going up in the workforce. And then there was this change. There was this change that I began to see, which was we didn't have product development cycles anymore. They were like cyclones, right? Things were in continuous movement and continuous change all the time. People needed to be in touch with their customers continuously. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to do this product release and marketing's going to do this and we have this long cycle. It was this constant swirl. They were solving problems in a continuous cycle. People needed to come together from multidisciplinary teams to actually get something done. And students weren't being taught that. They were coming out of school and they had great skills in their craft. So if you were an engineer and an architect or you were designing, you had great skills in your craft, but you didn't have this other aura around you. So we saw really they were lacking the skills they needed in today's world. And so what began to happen, I know I did this at Frog, is we were training students. We'd get them out of school, we'd see the core of what was possible, and we'd train them to kind of work in this multidisciplinary work, critical thinking, somewhat autonomous. And that was something they didn't know about. So for me, coming to UT, the work had two goals. First and foremost is to better prepare students for what exists beyond those 40 acres. How many of you are UT grads? Okay, so you know the 40 acres. For those of you who don't, that's what they call the campus, but it's no way 40 acres, it's like 400 acres. My view is a diploma is no longer enough. You need to really think beyond that. And I didn't know this, but along the way, we started reinventing higher education, or people tell me that all the time. So listen, as I said, higher education is a terrific job educating people in their craft. They're very good. Like, if you go to a place like UT and you go to the architecture school, the engineering school, you know your craft really, really well. But if you're in an undergraduate level, you do come out with your a preliminary mastery of that. However, when you get out into that world, it gets a little hard. Now, when you go and you talk to the university, how many of you, when you took classes, went into other departments, took classes there? Have kind of cross-disciplinary skill levels. That's good. I always, like in the designer world, there's always a few more that do that. If you talk to people in like from the business school, they will tell you, no, they never left. So what has happened, what we see is, it's really a funding issue. Like, people want to do this, but colleges, schools, they're rewarded for, I use it, butts and seats. Like, you get rewarded for the amount of students, you know this, that are in your seat. You don't get rewarded for the type of education that you're putting out there, or where the world is moving. It's a really interesting model. So how do we, this is my question I kept asking, so how could we possibly expect a recent college graduate to be successful collaborating with teams across different functions if that wasn't something they experienced in college? They never saw this. And so before I went to UT, besides the research I did at UT, I talked to businesses all over Texas. And I talked to parents and I talked to students. And what was interesting about the businesses was they wanted a very particular type of students. They assumed the student would be good at what they did in their degree. But they said they wanted a student that was empathetic, that was multidisciplinary, and that was not afraid to make mistakes. Not exactly what an education is today, right? That's not exactly what we teach our students. And because we live in this multidisciplinary world and we work so fast, we have to teach our students how to cope and be successful at something like that, instead of just getting an A, which is what so many students come into school today wanting is, how do I get the A? Well, guess what? You might not, and that's okay. But they need to know how to problem solve today, how to hone those critical thinking skills. Now that sounds like it's lip service, but it's shocking to me how many of these students come into school, particularly undergraduates, that haven't honed in. They've been so concentrated on taking those AP classes and getting those A's that they haven't honed in on these critical thinking skills. And we need them to expand beyond their discipline. So think about it. If you got a degree in marketing, do you think you'd just work with marketing people your whole life? It kind of doesn't work that way. So for me, how do we do this? The answer kind of seems simple. Again, I didn't know that wasn't how it was done. So sometimes not having any basis of understanding is really a good thing, and it happened to be a good thing at UT. So one of the things we wanted to do was kind of reimagine what a classroom would look like. So before this new school started, I started something called the Center for Integrated Design. And the whole purpose was integrating, this is how it started, integrating design thinking, and I'll get to kind of explaining my version of design thinking, as a core fundamental in undergraduate education. It was very important to me that we taught undergraduates, because most of these programs are taught at a graduate level. And that's great, but I really wanted to get the little puppies when they're like 17 and 18, and they haven't gotten bad habits yet, and we can begin to teach them what this is like. And so I was telling you, I did a walking tour. I talked to over 400 people my first year at UT, and I went to all the schools, and McCombs, and the business school, and the architecture school, and the engineering school, and computer science, and the information school, and RTF, and the LBJ school, all said that they would join in. They would be part of this. And then we went to the provost, and the provost said, okay, we'll see if this works. We'll give you a little bit of money to get this started. And so we started a 19-credit undergraduate transcriptable certificate. And it was open to every student across campus. And the first course they have to take Introduction to Design Thinking. And then there was a whole bunch of courses we began to craft for them around storytelling, around interdisciplinary work. And all of these classes were curated
so that you were sitting in a team with a business person, with a marketing person, with a designer, so they would get this really understanding of how you problem solve with these different perspectives. And so you got these students that were designing and creating it. It was really interesting to watch. Well, who knew? Who knew that that would kind of spark an overwhelming interest in this concept of what design was? And so the thought was there to take what we were doing and fold it into something the College of Fine Arts had, which was a design program that basically our design program lived in art and art history. Did any of you major in it? Okay, you did. It was in art and art. The design program lived in art and art history for from its inception in 1992 until last year, which maybe in 1992 was fine. The world has changed. Design is not art. The founder of Frog is a guy named Hartmut Esslinger. I don't know if any of you know him. Hartmut's quite the character, and he used to give this speech that would say, and I'm going to do his bad German accent, ja man, if you want to have an opinion, be an artist. Otherwise, if you're a designer, go solve the problem. And he was, that's something kind of stuck in my mind all the time about that. And so when I got to UT, and here was this design department, and they were treating it as art, and now it's problem solving. And we are designers. We do designerly things. We make stuff. That's what designers do. We problem solve. So let me share a little bit about the school. I'll get into what we do there. But we decided that we didn't want to just do 15-week, 3-hour courses in a classroom, because we know that so much about design is experience. It's learning and it's making and it's experiencing with different things. So we decided to test a couple of different methods. First thing we tested was IBM in North Austin has decided to locate they've invested a ton of money in design, and they decided to locate their design headquarters here in Austin, Texas. They have 700 designers at IBM here, and they have about another 700 around the world. And so I went up to IBM and I said, what happens if we teach a course here? And our students, you bus our students up there, we work with you on curriculum, and they are immersed in the world. And it's a little different than a lab, and it's a little different because they're solving the problems you're solving. They're dealing with the restrictions that you're dealing with. What's going to happen there? And I didn't know you're supposed to probably get permission to take the students off campus, although they're adults. But all of that, who knew? Who knew? All right. But it was really interesting to watch. So what happened is these students really got engaged in these problems that had like all these restrictions. They were totally intimidated when they first got there, but it was amazing in the 15 weeks to see the transformation. First of all, it was that students had to apply to get into the class because we wanted students who were committed to going. And these are undergraduates. And they would meet, they'd get on the bus, they call it the design bus. They meet on the bus, and they'd get bussed up there, and then 3.5 hours later, they get taken back. And what happened is these people who didn't know each other at all, because again, we curated the teams of people, so they had different people from different disciplines, became really just amazing in how they began to work with each other. And the final projects that we did were amazed. The IBM was amazed by the output. We had the dean, provost there. Everybody was amazed at what these kids, could do and accomplish. It was very interesting. So you think about that and you say, well, what if I had had something like that? What would have happened to my worldview? How would I have written my cover letter if I had had a course like that? Because you began to see this confidence level in these students rise. And they went in scared, and it was really different. So now we've expanded that. Hey, we got a good thing. Let's do that. So we're doing the IBM course, but we did McKinsey design, we did USAA, Argo. We got a whole bunch of people where we're taking these students and giving them different experiences all over. The other thing we did was we said, hey, does everybody have to do a 15-week course? Is that just what it is? What happens if we have a whole bunch of series of 5-week, 1-credit courses? 1 night a week, 3 hours. Let's give you the nomenclature Let's give you an understanding. If I'm working with a computer scientist, maybe I only want to know what the language means. I'm not going to program anything. But let me break down these barriers. And these courses are incredibly popular, these one-credit courses. We've got sketching courses where we take kids who have never drawn a thing and we teach them how to tell a story visually. So what do you write on the whiteboard, right? You all write on whiteboards. What do you write on the whiteboard so people are going to pay attention to you? How do you put a presentation together? How do you tell your story? Because we found that we needed to give these kids these types of skills. And what's interesting about that is we then saw that these kids had interest in a lot of this information. Then we expand the course. So if you have interest in something, we'll expand it. We did an introduction to AI design, artificial intelligence design, because we very much felt like a freshman entering in 2017, that was last year, when they get out, AI design is here to stay. Like they better understand how to design for voice, how to design for this kind of machine learning. And we need to teach them. So we did an intro course, 5 weeks, and the interest was so great, we now have 3 AI design courses that kids are flocking to. We also hired a lot of professionals to teach the classes, and this is really controversial at the university. I'm very passionate about this. If you're in an industry that's moving this fast, you've got to have experts. It's a balance. You've got to have people that are teaching you the foundations because you need that. But if you are getting to where this industry is moving, you've got to have these professionals in there teaching these courses. So we brought them in. And the other thing we did was we brought in a serial entrepreneur to start a creative entrepreneurship program. So this is something I learned at Frog. I get to Frog, and they tell me, first thing, don't talk about numbers with the designers. Why? I don't understand. Are they stupid? Like, what do you mean they don't understand? Like, are they flowers? Like, oh, they wilt when they talk about numbers. You're like, that made no sense to me. And so for the first couple of years, I'm like, okay, we won't talk about numbers. But what I saw was there was this total disconnect with what the business was and where it was going and what the designers did. So one day, I decided I was going to, have a monthly financial call. And I invited everybody, the whole company. And the call went on for hours. And the designers, because their designers were getting their business lesson, they were doing what designers do. They were asking questions. They were trying to understand the business. We were onto something, right? So we did this again and again and again. What happened was probably the biggest period of growth in Frog's history. Because now these designers understood business and the goals and what this was mean. It wasn't me, screaming numbers out at them or talking about this. They actually understood how this works and what it works for clients and how you bid stuff and why you do certain things and make certain decisions and why clients could perhaps do something because it didn't make sense financially. So that was a very important moment in my career, and I wanted to give that back to the students. I wanted to make sure that our students learn that from the beginning. And so we introduced the serial entrepreneur, and now, poor Jan, her name is Jan Ryan. Jan's been a serial entrepreneur here in Austin for a very long time, and she might have been an alien walking onto that. The faculty didn't know what to do with her. The first year, the students didn't know what to do with her. But as people get used to people, things work. She's teaching a course right now that's killer in creative entrepreneurship. And next semester, she's teaching a class in entrepreneurship from the view of a woman, creative entrepreneurship from the view of a woman, what a woman has to go through. So men are invited, but it's kind of an interesting topic, as we know. And she's really helping our creative students understand, not that they're going to go out and start their own business or their product, but really understanding the mindset of entrepreneur, because that helps you tremendously. Okay, here's the great news. Classes are full. They're at 100% capacity. Every single class we had this semester had a waiting list. I was telling Nada works with AET. Coming over here, I was just with the registrar right before I came over. We are the largest school in the College of Fine Arts in 1 year. And our trajectory is a hockey stick, which like sounds good, scares the daylights out of me, because let's face it, I've not done this before. But we've tapped into something that's magical. So let's get to the heart of this. What are we teaching? Probably what you guys want to know is about design thinking. Really what we're teaching is empathy. I mentioned that before, but I can't stress that enough. Does everybody know what design thinking is, or should I give you my 30-second primer? Yes, primer? Okay. People often, there's this terrible thing that's missing, design literacy. That's just what I call it. Because people think of design and they think of the artifact, the thing, right? The tangible thing. You build stuff, right? You make stuff. You know, there's product design or there's software design, but they always think of the artifact. But this is really the methodology. Designers have used this methodology for years and years and years. We've now kind of put a wrapper around it, or Tim Brown from IDEO took something that was done in the early 60s and kind of put a wrapper around this. And my best explanation is it's interdisciplinary, it's human-centered, it's the approach to finding an answer. And it requires, and I'm sure you're all going to shake your head because you do this, discovery. How do I go out and really understand people? Like when I said, before I took this job at UT, I went and I talked to a bunch of people, businesses and parents and teachers and faculty, to kind of understand what the problem was. And then the ideation, and then experimentation, right? Prototyping things, what works, what doesn't. And this is how you develop new methods, new services, new products. And we bring this together. The best approach is always with these teams of cross-discipline experts. And oftentimes you get something really interesting. So that sounds simple, right? I find it really fascinating because people get all fired up about it and then they get really scared because it means change, and change is always hard. And so the goal is, if we could teach students at a very young age, this is how it is. Don't be afraid of working like this. Maybe in 10 or 15 years out, you begin to see that, hey, this is how it works. Don't be afraid. This is a good way of working together. And we're definitely seeing more and more people wanting this. It's in the government sector, it's in the nonprofit sector, right? Businesses, health, medical. You're seeing people wanting to think about solving problems differently. And for us, it's really teaching the students the tool sets and practice, 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 practice. And that was one thing the businesses told us over and over again is, I don't just want one class on this. I want these students to do this over and over again. Because if you do it over and over again, you understand the pitfalls, and you understand then how to really work your way out of what I call the tower of no's, which is every time, I'm sure you've all been there, you deliver what you think is the greatest idea in the world, and that person sitting in the room goes, no, no. For no particular reason other than usually it's because it's change, and people are just petrified of change. But this is really, it's human-centered design. It's all about prioritizing the human. And that's what we're teaching our students. Prioritize the human. It's not about the technology. Technology doesn't mean anything. It's about the human. If you don't understand the problem you're trying to solve and who you're trying to solve that problem for, it doesn't matter what you have. There's a whole, I call it a graveyard of great ideas out there because you didn't understand the problem you're trying to solve. And you see this over and over and over again. Empathy. It sounds kind of touchy-feely and soft, and usually if I give this, I talk about this in a classic business setting, I could see people literally falling asleep and rolling their eyes. Literally. They're like, ooh. Once somebody raised their hand and said to me, but you talk a lot about empathy because you're a woman. So it's interesting. But I bring it up all the time because I think it's really important. Because I don't think anybody could problem solve and design something unless you're empathetic. Unless you understand what drives people at a deep level, you're not going to understand how to develop something that's good. And so empathy becomes really important. And when I started to go out and I started to talk to these businesses and they all started talking about empathy, I thought, my God, we have nirvana here. But in the education system, it's starting to creep in, but it's really, really an important part of the education to let people feel comfortable with that soft skill. And they want it, it's that core skill they want. You know, employees want this core skill. I think it also helps you make more rational business decisions. You know, we talked about the financials, right? Financials are important. God knows I have read enough spreadsheets in my career, and I get enough data and information, but that's only 50% of it. I'm not going to get political here, but I'm just going to bring something out. In 2016, I went to an election party with a bottle of champagne. Sure, positive, my candidate was going to win. I had read everything. All the Nates Silvers, I looked at all the data. I knew it all. I was positive. I was wrong. They were wrong. Everybody tried to backtrack, but you go back and you look at that data. Data told you one thing. Emotions told you another. Rationale told you another. People, you have to understand the people. You have to understand the human. And if you put those two together, gee, you have a fighting chance when you're developing, you're creating something, to have something really terrific. So we are at the school teaching design thinking principles, teaching entrepreneurship, teaching empathy, because we want them to have these skills. We want them to go into these weekly meetings. We want them to work with their coworkers and really, really think beyond their fear, because I think that's what a lot of people have, which leads me to the F word, failure. I never use it. I think it's the stupidest term we've ever had. Like, sorry, fail fast and failure. How many of you in high school, if you would have come home with a failing grade, your parents would have jumped up and down and said you failed fast? Like, woo, yay, you failed. Oh, that's so great. Oh, I'm so proud of you. I think we've confused. I mean, I understand what people are trying to say, but I think we confuse particularly students, right? They just spent K through 12 not failing. Like, God forbid you fail. I mean, you know, one of my children would have come home with a bunch of failing grades. I don't think I would have been jumping on the table, let me tell you. So we tell her, you know, they go through this whole education process. Then we get into college and we're like, oh, you can make mistakes. You can fail. When you get out there, it's, you know, fail fast. And I don't even know what you're talking about. I think we're really going about this in the wrong way. You have to think about it as continuous learning. We learn. You're learning. You're sitting here listening to me. Maybe you're going to take something away from this. You're learning. That's what we do, and that's what we should be encouraging our students to do on a daily basis. They should be learning. Think about it. In the scientific method, right? So a scientist, every time they fail, they get closer to success, and that's rewarded. That could go on for 10, 15 years. In the business world, you fail, and someone says, who are you going to fire? And I have had epic failures in my career. Epic. Yeah, really good ones. Like monumental. But I learned from that. And it's a great teaching moment for people too, to be out there and have people feel comfortable with not doing everything right the first time, with making mistakes, because that's just part of the process. You know, unless you're, you know, putting your finger on the red button, most of the time you're not going to nuke your company. You know, it doesn't work. So we've got to have people feel comfortable with ambiguity and learning and working through that and not knowing the answer all the time. Learning is so important, and we seem to have forgotten that. So to me, it's like that's what's that's what's really important. And if they can walk away with anything, is to walk away with feel comfortable with ambiguity. Feel confident about that. So many of these students are under so much pressure. Feel confident with your ambiguity and know that you're going to learn through that and come out better. I was talking to a student yesterday. She was just a really nervous kid. She's a Plan 2 student, super smart, but just always thinks she's not doing well. Like she's just that, she's always anxiety ridden. Went to Europe for 8 months. Did a semester abroad in the spring and then stayed through the summer. And what was amazing about it is she had all sorts of problems that happened to her there. And she was alone. And she had to work through these problems. And I'm telling you, this young woman was transformed and much more confident in herself. And I told her that yesterday. And she said, really? And I said, well, you just she had this calamity of errors that happens. And because she had to work through all that, she just felt better about herself. You can do this. And I think that's just something that we have to help our students through. So I'm going to leave some time for questions. But I think this journey that we have from childhood to adulthood, I know you're all young, but think back there. They have this impressionability and this eagerness to learn, right? They're hungry. And I think we have the opportunity to really push the envelope and make changes. I don't know why we wouldn't want to do that. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I've been on both sides now. I want to help these students become the best that they can be because they're going to help us in society, right? They're the change that's going to happen. I want them to master design thinking and human-centered design and empathy and working with people. I want them to be those continuous learners because I think that's really important. So it's, at UT we say what happens here changes the world, and I think we're really doing that. So as they say, right, hook 'em. Thank you, and I'll open it up for questions. Any questions? Yes.
It seems like a lot of what the design thinking curriculum that you mentioned maybe anecdotally is, and maybe this is because of the sponsorship with companies that sort of align with companies that are kind of profit-driven and product-driven. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about if you're seeing an interest in applying these things to, say, solving broader social problems.
Absolutely, and we are working. So we're working on some social innovation programs also. That's another part of the side. What I've seen is these problems, in particularly on the social side, are more in demand even than what's happening on the business side. When you start thinking of, I was just meeting, for example, with the LBJ school and they're looking at all this election fraud, and they're looking at public policy things, and wanting to do workshops with design thinking to kind of help start spurring some of this different ways of thinking and different ways of solving the problems. I mean, that was just, I just had that meeting last week, but we see this with a lot of nonprofits wanting to come to us. In fact, I get this request frequently that kind of have a student-led agency to go in and do these workshops and work with these nonprofits, which actually I would love to do. I need another me right now. Because that just sounds like that would be so much fun to be able to get in there and do that. But yes, we see that. And we see in governments, businesses, the health industry. So knock on wood, we're about to next year launch a brand new graduate degree, a master's in design in health, and it will be with the medical school. So this is a very, as you guys probably know, a very innovative curriculum at the medical school. In the third year of the medical school, the students are required to take study outside of medicine. So 29 out of 50 students wanted to take design because they're really looking from a social place, community development, clinic development, product development. They're problem solving, right? The health industry is kind of a mess, so problem solving in there. We didn't have a degree, so we've put one together. They're taking, we're doing a test case. They're taking a bunch of design courses in distinction right now, and then next year we'll launch a degree program, and we'll get students from the outside to come together and take a program like this. Yes?
So, as actually a parent of a 17-year-old contemplating school, there's this conversation about specificity versus a kind of general approach to anything. And I think many universities are set up on a kind of either-or approach to kind of general studies or a sort of specific realm. And for a lot of years, I think there was this kind of undergrad is the place for one thing and the graduate degree is the place for the other. So it seems like you've flipped that model a little bit, and what's that like? And do you see any ripple effects to other undergraduate programs that you're touching?
Well, I think we only flipped it in the sense that we offered initially, it's still going on, we offered a minor, right? So you're still going to be a business major, let's say, but you're going to have this minor in design strategies where you're learning this methodology because it's a good adjunct to what you're doing. Because I think that's really important. So I think you always have to be good at something, right? Because you have to fit some job posting that somebody has. But what businesses are looking for is they're looking for those additional something. So 2 days ago, I got an email from a business student who said he got his dream job because of the design strategies, which is doing being a design analyst or an analyst in a large company, but in the design group. And he said that was his, I didn't even know that existed, but that was his dream job. And he said it was because he had taken all of these courses and he understood enough to, in the interview, he said, I could tell him everything. I knew it all. But he got the job, which was terrific. Yes?
I'm just curious, how can you teach empathy to small kids?
Well, that's great, and I get asked that question because people think they're not empathetic. They're probably they're big open wounds. Most college kids, really. And how you teach it is, you're number one, you're forcing them to work with people they don't know, and so they have to learn about people. They have to learn about, what is this computer science person who I would have never spoken to in my entire life? What do I have to do? So that's the first step. The second step is a big part of design thinking is going out and doing insights research. And so we send them out. They got to talk to people, and they've got to come back. And if they don't, and they do this over and over again. And if they don't come back with good information, we send them out again. You see them begin to break down and begin to understand people. So you're kind of forcing them to, it's another version of Big Brother or something. You're forcing them all to be together constantly. And you can see, again, they're not scared by it. Every professor will tell me at the beginning of the semester, once they realize they're with people that are not people they don't know and not from their tribe, there's always invariably somebody in the class that comes up and goes, oh, I don't do that. I want to be with, they're soothing my friend. I want to be over there. And it's like, no, you have to do this. And you have to force through it and make it work. So that's how you teach them. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doreen, and thank you all for being here. This was our fourth of a series of 5 luncheons. Great, thank you so much. Our 5th one is in November the 13th, so you can go to AIAAustin.org for your ticket to that. Get it early, it's our annual meeting, so there's a lot going on that day. And then also check our calendar for other things like our homes tour that's coming up, which is such a fantastic event. Homecoming for architects and builders. So that's pretty great. Get your tickets or volunteer, or get tickets for your clients and volunteer and go for free yourself. So that's fantastic. I feel like we would be remiss today if we didn't take just a moment before we leave this room. We are in a shared space of friendship and camaraderie here today, and I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the importance of this date in our nation's history. As you go back into the world, there are words from President Barack Obama in the 2011 radio address that I feel are really appropriate, and I would offer that you think about as you leave. Even the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness, is a way to honor those we lost, a way to claim the spirit of the unity that followed 9/11. So thank you all for being here.